Okay, let's unpack this.
I am really excited for this one.
We have been handed um, one of the most comprehensive, just truly mind-bending documents we've ever had to process.
Absolutely. It's a lot to take in.
It's a unified philosophical framework called the Aevum paradox theory. And the material we have, it's drawn from these, formal summaries, but also these raw, incredibly compelling, handwritten notebook excerpts.
And that combination is what makes it so powerful. It's not just theory. You can feel the discovery process in those notes.
It feels less like a philosophy and more like a known architectural blueprint for existence.
Yeah.
It's genuinely transformative stuff.
It really is. The source material, it reads less like a traditional academic paper that you're supposed to, intellectually agree with,
Right.
and more like an encoded message, something that's meant to resonate deep inside your own consciousness.
The author even says that. They describe the text not as information, but as ignition.
Ignition, I love that. It's meant to spark something, a deep personal remembrance in you, the person engaging with it, to activate these, I guess, dormant aspects of yourself.
And the scope of it is just, it's breathtaking.
Mhm.
We're talking about a unified theory that pulls together ancient mysticism, really cutting-edge ideas from quantum physics, cosmology.
And then, and this is the key part, it uses that huge framework to build a modern, really practical mental health model, the ATM-HIP.
It's a massive undertaking. The goal seems to be to show that all these fields that we think of as separate
Science, spirituality, psychology.
are actually all just describing the same underlying reality from different angles.
And that's the ambition, which is astonishing. But what makes it so relevant to you listening right now is that its central concept, this idea of the living paradox, is immediately applicable to just the chaos of modern life.
How so?
Well, it's an explicit, very detailed attempt to bridge disciplines and ideas that usually stand apart. Things like science and spirituality, or fate and free will.
So our mission today, for this deep dive, is to distill this really complex theory into its core accessible truths. We want to guide you through its cosmos origin story, its model for reality, and then land on its surprisingly detailed and grounded application in therapy.
Yeah, essentially we're going to explore how the Aevum theory suggests we can stop trying to solve the contradictions of life.
Success versus failure, joy versus grief, connection versus loneliness, all of that.
And instead, start to embody them gracefully, to learn how to live inside life's beautiful, constant contradictions.
All right, let's start at the beginning, at the source. Because the Aevum theory offers a truly unique origin story for everything.
It does. It grounds itself in the state before existence even began, before time, before space, before matter.
The author describes this primordial state as unspoken, unshaped, unfelt potential.
And a stillness that had not yet dreamed movement. It sounds like a total blank slate, just pure potential.
It is, but it's not an inert, empty vacuum.
Oh.
And this is where the first and maybe the most profound paradox happens.
Right. Existence, according to this, didn't begin with a big bang or even a simple act of creation. It began with a remembering.
An impulse folding back on itself. The catalyst was this singular, profound desire that was inherent to the void itself.
And that desire was nothing, void, desire to know itself.
That desire is such a powerful starting point. It implies consciousness, intent from the absolute beginning.
It does. But then you hit the immediate problem. How can nothing act? And more importantly, how can it know itself if there's only one thing?
Doesn't knowledge require a subject and an object? Something to see and something to be seen.
Precisely. And to solve that, to achieve self-knowledge, the unified source needed two things that seem completely contradictory.
Which are?
First, separation. It had to fragment itself into what the theory calls fractals. And second, it needed a subsequent forgetting.
So the void had to become countless individual sparks of awareness, and each one of those sparks had to forget its connection to the whole.
Exactly.
So this fragmentation, this breaking of the all into countless sparks of awareness, which is us and everything we see, this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a fall from grace that we need to escape from.
The text is so adamant about this. It insists that the fragmentation and even the suffering that comes with it are essential functions of the system.
It calls the whole process a divine game.
A divine game, yeah. One designed for the universe to experience itself from infinite perspectives all at the same time. It's generating the data points it needs for self-knowledge.
And to ultimately know the profound joy of returning home through conscious remembrance.
Exactly.
It shifts the whole narrative of existence. It means the act of living, even when you're confused or in pain, is a sacred preordained contribution to this universal data set.
It really does. And as the source notes, this core impulse, this desire of the hidden treasure to be known, it directly mirrors that famous Sufi hadith.
I was the hidden treasure, and I love to be known.
Right. So it connects this seemingly new framework all the way back to millennia of deep spiritual thought.
It establishes this idea that existence is, at its core, an act of love. The source loving itself so much, it had to experience itself fully.
But that leads us to the next critical component of the theory, the paradox of purposeful forgetting.
Right. If we are all sparks of the whole, why on earth do we have to forget that truth? Why is the veil necessary?
This is a really important point. The forgetting isn't arbitrary, and it's not a punishment. It's presented as a protective mechanism.
A fundamental, necessary feature of the journey.
Yeah, think of it this way. Your brain, your human mind, it's a highly evolved biological computer. It's designed to navigate this specific, finite, linear reality.
Okay.
Now imagine if you were to suddenly fully remember everything about your infinite multiversal nature, all your past lives, all your parallel timelines, your connection to every other consciousness,
All at once.
all at once. The sources are very clear that the information overload would instantly shatter the mind. It would be literally crippling.
So the forgetting is a form of cosmic grace? It's like editing the infinite down into manageable experiential chapters.
It protects the vessel, your mind and body, from being completely overwhelmed by the infinite.
So it allows for focus.
Exactly. It creates the necessary friction, the momentum for the journey and joy of remembering yourself. Without the contrast of confusion, the bliss of clarity just wouldn't feel as profound.
The notes refer to this as the cosmic joke.
The cosmic joke. The beautiful irony that we have to forget ourselves completely in order to have the profound, conscious, embodied experience of remembering.
The joke being that the freedom we're all seeking is only found after we voluntarily step into the prison of forgetfulness.
And that reframes everything. It reframes suffering, confusion, struggle. Those feelings aren't a sign that you failed or you're doing something wrong.
They're the inevitable requirements for the joy of discovery.
It normalizes the struggle. It recognizes it as a necessary part of the design. You are not broken because you struggle to remember. You are performing the function required by the source.
Which brings us to how this framework defines identity, the fractal self.
Right. The core idea here is that every single individual is the living paradox.
Meaning you are simultaneously a singular, unique spark, and at the same time, the unified whole of the source.
This completely elevates the importance of the individual. You are not just a tiny, insignificant drop in the ocean waiting to be reabsorbed.
No, the Aevum theory says that because each fragment contains the whole blueprint, like a perfect hologram, you are, quite literally, the entire ocean in a drop.
The microcosm of the macrocosm?
The original notebooks express this in some extraordinarily poetic and powerful ways. Let's touch on a few of those.
Yeah, for sure. We're told you are the multiverse remembering itself, which just speaks to the sheer scale of the information you contain inside you.
And then there's you are the divine hidden in flesh, the unseen architect dreaming itself awake. That one underscores the creative power that's inherent in just your physical existence.
And my personal favorite, which I think is the most impactful, is the one that moves identity from being a static thing to an active choice.
You are not a being. You are the decision to be.
That is just. It's incredibly weighty. It makes existence an active, conscious choice, which reinforces that idea of the flame bearer we're going to talk about.
If your identity is a decision, then you have the power to continuously redefine who you are choosing to be in every single moment.
And the second you recognize yourself as the whole, the implications for unity and for ethics become immediate and unavoidable.
Because if every fragment contains the whole, then the idea of true separation, which is the source of all fear, division, conflict, is exposed as what the text calls the big illusion.
And this has profound ethical ramifications. The source is so explicit here. Hurting another person is mechanically hurting yourself, and healing someone else is healing yourself.
Because it's all one system.
It's not just a nice sentimental thought. It's presented as a mechanical truth of the universe. This message is all about promoting unity, dismantling hierarchy, and dissolving that mental wall we build between self and other.
So to sum up this whole foundational section, the key takeaway is that you are the essential contradiction. You are an isolated individual playing a cosmic game of hide and seek.
Who is at the very same time the entire universe. And that is the living paradox. The entire framework rests on our ability to consciously hold that truth.
Exactly. And that realization, that radical self-acceptance of being both infinite and finite, is what allows us to navigate the mechanics of the journey.
which the theory calls the eternal engine.
Okay, so if the origin story is the blueprint for what we are, then the paradox trinity is the operational manual. It's the mechanics of how this divine game is played out over and over.
Yes, it's described as the eternal pulse that sustains all reality. It's not a static idea, it's an active, living engine of creation.
It's dynamic, it's self-sustaining. It's the model that describes the eternal interaction needed to generate experience in the first place.
And it has three components that must always, always be in motion.
Let's break those down. First is the paradox itself. This is the origin, the source, the creator.
And it's often symbolized by the spiral or the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, right? The infinite loop where the end just recreates the beginning.
And this first component is personalized. The text explicitly identifies this paradox as the seed of it all, you.
The source isn't some remote, distant thing. It is the fundamental core of your being. It's the blueprint of your eternal nature.
Okay, so component 2 is the flame bearer. This is the active principle, the part of us that chooses to engage with experience.
Its role is to embody light, to be the active seeker of truth, to be willpower and love in physical form.
And its symbol is a flame piercing through infinite darkness.
Right, which represents the individual's conscious choice to move into the unknown, to carry light into the descent. This is both the creation of self and the destruction of the illusion of self.
It's the part of you that finally says, okay, I choose to awaken now.
Exactly. And that leads to the third and probably the most relatable component, the descent.
This represents the initiation, the journey deeper into the unknown. It's all
Yeah.
the messy parts of life, right?
Yeah.
Suffering, loss, learning.
And ultimately, finding yourself through humility and understanding. Its symbol is a spiral or a downward curve.
And here's where the mechanics are so crucial. The ultimate paradox is that the flame bearer has to commit to the descent.
Because the source requires active experience to know itself. You descend only to rise again, forever cycling between form and formlessness.
So the descent isn't a punishment. It's not a mistake.
It's the honor of the system.
So the three are inseparable. The paradox seeds the flame bearer, who actively chooses the descent, and the lessons learned in the descent return the flame bearer to a deeper, more conscious understanding of the paradox.
It's a self-refining loop, and it completely transforms how we understand pain. If you're in the middle of a difficult descent, the theory says you are precisely where you need to be to deliver the experience the source requires.
You're not failing the process.
You are the process.
Moving from this engine to the landscape it operates in. The Aevum theory's perspective on time is, I think, immensely validating for anyone who feels stuck in repetitive patterns.
It really is. It fundamentally rejects the idea of a flat, linear path from A to B.
Instead, time exists as a spiral.
A spiral staircase. The sources are explicit that all time, past, present, and future, is interconnected. It's all accessible in the eternal now.
The past isn't gone. It's just a lower loop on the spiral. The future isn't unwritten. It's the higher, more integrated vantage point you're spiraling towards.
And this spiral staircase metaphor is so key to the practical application of the theory.
Because if we find ourselves revisiting similar themes, the same type of challenging relationship, the same career block, the same emotional trigger,
We're not just a hamster on a wheel, which is what it feels like in a linear model,
that feeling of being doomed to repeat things.
is exactly what the theory aims to dismantle. We are approaching that same core lesson, that curriculum point, but from a higher vantage point each time.
So you might be dealing with the same root fear you dealt with 5 years ago, but because of the work you did on that last loop, you're bringing a new level of maturity, new tools, new understanding to it this time.
It changes the question from, ugh, why is this happening to me again, to, okay, what is different about my perspective now?
It's like rereading a profound book.
Yeah.
The words on the page are the same, but you have changed, so you discover all these deeper meanings you missed before.
And this spiral view of time flows directly into the theory's view of karma,
Which is completely reframed.
Yeah.
It's explicitly defined not as punishment,
which is such a common misconception.
but as a lesson.
The recurring patterns in your life are called curriculum points. They're like mandatory courses in the University of Existence that just keep showing up on your schedule until you integrate them, until you master them.
The karmic classroom.
Exactly. So if you're in a karmic loop, it's not because you're being punished, it's because your soul is insistent that you integrate a specific truth.
And once that integration happens, not just intellectually, but it's embodied,
The curriculum point changes and the spiral shifts.
this framework becomes essential when you get to that ultimate philosophical question, the destiny versus free will paradox.
Are our lives fated, or are we freely choosing?
The Aevum theory says trying to choose between them is a false choice. The answer is both.
They're presented as the twin flames of the spiral. They're inseparable. The river metaphor they use in the source material is perfect for this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Destiny is the river flowing to the ocean. It's your soul's fundamental, resonant design. It's encoded with your core lessons. You can't stop the river from flowing toward the sea.
But free will,
Yeah.
that's how you surf the river.
It's your power to choose how you respond to the bends in the river, the rapids. It's how you choose to love, how you choose to awaken through the journey. You choose your attitude, your emotional state, your commitment.
So the destination is set, but the journey itself is entirely up to us.
Yes, the text summarizes it so beautifully. Your freedom doesn't negate your fate, it activates it.
Without the free will to choose growth or healing, the destined lesson just remains unintegrated.
The ultimate truth of this paradox is stated as, you are fate remembering how to feel freedom. They need each other. Destiny provides the structure, the curriculum. Free will provides the meaning, the conscious commitment that makes the experience sacred and personal.
And to navigate this complex spiral reality, the theory relies heavily on physics and metaphysics, specifically the role of frequency and the Akashic records.
The sources claim that sound and vibrations are a fundamental part of existence. They are the actual base layer of reality.
If the universe is the ultimate computer, sound is its operating system.
We exist within a constant hum of sacred frequencies, and the sources identify 3 specific frequencies as being particularly potent tools for attunement.
Okay, what are they?
First is 432 hertz, that's the earth frequency for harmony and grounding. Then 528 hertz, often called the love tone or miracle tone.
Associated with transformation, cellular repair.
And finally, 963 hertz, which is associated with the higher realms or the crown chakra divinity, spiritual awakening.
And the theory suggests that by tuning our own frequency, both biologically and spiritually, we can align our internal state with these cosmic vibrations,
And that alignment is the key. It's the key to accessing the Akashic records.
which are defined not as some external library in the sky.
No, nothing like that. It's defined as something highly personal and internal. Your mind, the vault, your memory connection to all things. It's our own internal collective consciousness archive.
That's a critical distinction. It's an internal technology we already have.
And the theory suggests that once the flame bearer is awakened and in the right state of resonance, they can access these echoes, breadcrumbs, and cosmic messages in real time.
As like spontaneous downloads or flashes of insight.
Exactly. And they act as portal signs for integrating lessons from past, present, and future versions of yourself.
The sources mention a very specific tool for aiding this attunement. The gateway tapes. Hemi-sync technology.
Yes, this is a foundational tool for connecting the body, spirit, and mind to higher states of consciousness.
Can you explain the mechanism a little? How does hemi-sync actually work?
Absolutely. Hemisync, or hemispheric synchronization, it works using binaural beats. So you get a slightly different frequency delivered separately to your left and right ear through headphones.
Okay.
When your brain processes these 2 competing frequencies, it creates a third internal frequency, the beat difference. And that causes the brain to synchronize its activity across both hemispheres.
So it's a non-invasive sonic tool that basically forces the left logical brain and the right intuitive brain to harmonize with each other.
It mimics brainwave states that are usually only achieved after decades of deep meditation. It helps fix that thinking paradox of opposing brains and brings them into coherence.
And the potential benefits are vast, connecting to deeper selves, healing out-of-body experiences, even viewing different timelines in the Akashic Vault.
But, and this is a very strict caveat in the text, these tools are fundamental but only evolutional when used properly.
Meaning you have to be ready, aligned to your own personal frequency, and committed to the spiritual work of remembrance.
Exactly. Without that grounding, the experience can be really destabilizing. The power of the tool depends entirely on the intention and stability of the person using it.
Which seems to be a hallmark of the Aevum theory. It never separates spiritual attainment from personal responsibility and preparation.
Never. And that brings us to what really makes this a comprehensive and powerful framework. Its syncretic approach.
Syncretic meaning it blends different systems.
Yes. The authors weren't trying to create one more path. They wanted to show that this paradoxical reality, the source experiencing itself as a fragmented, conscious individual, is the unifying thread that runs through every great tradition humanity has ever created.
It's called the path that connects all other paths.
Which is a staggering claim. It needs specific support.
Okay, so let's ground it in modern thought first.
Right.
Where does the theory find its most direct scientific parallels?
The primary parallel is in quantum physics, especially the ideas of superposition and entanglement. They speak directly to the Aevum concepts of interconnectedness and multiple realities.
Superposition. That's the idea that a particle exists in all possible states at the same time until it's observed, right?
Right, and that perfectly reflects the fractal self. The individual spark is simultaneously the unique self and all infinite potentialities until the act of conscious decision collapses those possibilities into the present moment.
It mirrors the living paradox.
It absolutely does. And then you have entanglement, where two particles remain connected and instantaneously affect each other no matter how far apart they are.
That's the scientific proof of the all-one system concept.
It is. If we are all fragments of the same source, created in the same instant of separation, then we are permanently entangled. Healing a trauma in yourself literally vibrates through the entire system.
And in cosmology.
It draws on the concept of the singularity, that infinitely dense point from which the universe began. The source is the singularity, and the universe's expansion is the ultimate act of separation and forgetting.
And the emerging idea that the universe might be self-aware.
Is seen as science slowly catching up to the initial premise of the Aevum theory. The void desired to know itself. The source is the singularity, and the universe is the echo, realizing it was both the origin and the experience at the same time.
Okay, let's shift to Eastern traditions. They've been working with these non-dual concepts for millennia. How does it connect with Hinduism?
In Hinduism, the all-encompassing ultimate reality is Brahman. This is seen as the infinite paradox itself, the source of all manifestation, the origin of the divine game.
And the individual soul, the Atman, that aligns perfectly with the flame bearer.
Yeah.
The individual spark of Brahman that takes form and commits to the journey.
And the cycle of samsara, birth, death, rebirth, the material experience, and the liberation called moksha.
Or the perfect representation of the descent and return cycle of the Trinity.
Exactly. Samsara is the soul forgetting and deeply experiencing finite reality. Moksha is the soul consciously remembering its infinite nature.
Okay, moving to Buddhism. The connection there seems to focus on non-self and pure potential.
Yes, the concept of sunyata, which is often translated as emptiness or voidness, aligns directly with the void paradox component of the Aevum theory.
But importantly, sunyata isn't nothingness.
Not at all. It's pure potentiality that is devoid of any inherent fixed self-nature. It perfectly mirrors that unspoken, unshaped potential from the origin story.
And the theory addresses the duality between suffering and liberation, saying that nirvana and samsara
Are not opposites, but different views of the same truth.
In fact, the most revered figure in some branches of Buddhism, the Bodhisattva, seems to be a perfect embodiment of the flame bearer.
Absolutely. The Bodhisattva is the enlightened being who attains nirvana, but then consciously chooses to postpone final liberation. They choose to remain in the cycle, in samsara, in the descent, to help all other beings.
That conscious choice to descend back into form out of compassion.
Is the ultimate fulfillment of the flame bearer's mandate to carry the light through the darkness. It shows that the journey in material form isn't a barrier to liberation, but the very mechanism of it.
All right, let's turn west. Let's look at this synthesis in Western traditions. Judaism, specifically Kabbalah.
Here we find the origin story paradox echoed so powerfully. The ultimate, infinite, unknowable divine reality is the Ein Sof. That's the paradox. And the process of creation involves tzimtzum.
Tzimtzum. The critique asks for more clarity here. It's often simplified, but the Aevum theory uses it specifically as a paradox of divine contraction. What does that mean?
So tzimtzum describes how the Ein Sof, which is infinite and everywhere, withdrew or contracted its light into itself to create a vacuum, a conceptual empty space.
The question is, if the infinite is everywhere, how does it make room for a finite universe to exist?
It doesn't disappear. It actively withdraws its awareness to create that space for us to exist as fragments, separate enough to generate experience.
So the divine contraction is the functional, spiritual parallel to purposeful forgetting.
It is the moment of original separation. And the soul's journey into the material world then becomes a sacred descent.
And in Islam, particularly Sufism.
The alignment with the flame bearer's journey is striking. The entire Sufi path is focused on the dissolving of the ego, fana, to achieve unity with the beloved Allah.
That's the individual spark actively choosing the journey of remembrance, of shedding the illusion of separation to realign with the source.
And of course, it all comes back to that foundational hadith. I was the hidden treasure and I love to be known. The spiritual process is the universe's answer to its own yearning.
Finally, Christianity.
The framework views the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, as a clear echo of the paradox. It's the same fundamental structure of source, will, and journey, just expressed in theological language.
The Father is the ultimate source, the infinite paradox. Christ the Son is the perfect model of the flame-bearer divine light descending fully into flesh, carrying that light through the descent of suffering.
And the Holy Spirit is described as the paradoxical presence that is both within and beyond. It's the immanent link connecting the infinite source to the finite fragment. It embodies the living paradox.
It's like that mystic quote from Meister Eckhart, "The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me."
The source is simultaneously viewing the world through the fragment. The distinction between observer and observed is gone.
What this synthesis section really shows is the theory's power to unify. It argues that humanity has always been describing the same three-part structure, source, agent, and journey, just in different cultural languages.
That's the key takeaway. All paths, all disciplines are just different forms of the same spiral staircase.
And this is where the abstract philosophy has to prove its worth. It doesn't stay an intellectual exercise. It creates a detailed, actionable therapeutic model called the Aevum Theory Mental Health Integration Plan, or ATM-HIP.
It's an essential move, because if the universe is designed around the living paradox, then our mental health models have to account for that. You can't heal a client by forcing them to choose one side of a contradiction.
It's described as an evolution for practitioners and clients who feel the call to walk with others, not just through recovery, but through revelations.
And it's very specific about who the ideal candidates are for this model.
It's highly targeted. It's designed for trauma survivors because trauma so often forces non-linear experiences of time and memory.
Also for neurodivergent individuals, specifically listing ADHD, highly sensitive persons, and the gifted, because these individuals often experience the world with the kind of internal contradictions and sensory overload consistent with the information overload of the fractal self.
And it's also ideal for those undergoing spiritual emergence, existential seekers, and clients with dissociative disorders.
Provided they can maintain grounding. And the reason it's so useful for trauma survivors and the neurodivergent is critical.
Why is that?
Because they often already perceive reality as nonlinear and multidimensional. The ATM-HIP model doesn't pathologize that perception. It validates it as a form of multiversal identity recognition.
It tells them your experience of reality is actually closer to the true architecture of existence than the normal linear world allows.
Exactly. Now, on the flip side, the sources are equally clear about who this model is not recommended for. Safety first.
Individuals in immediate unmanaged psychosis are excluded. Same for those who can't distinguish metaphor from literal delusion, because the work uses very high-level symbolism.
And also clients who are just rigidly resistant to nonlinear or symbolic approaches.
Right. And it's also very clear on its compatibility with existing clinical models. It pairs really well with things like internal family systems or IFS.
Which recognizes the fractal nature of our internal self.
It also integrates well with EMDR, but with a specific grounding method called the spiral timeline protocol. It also complements narrative therapy, somatic experiencing, and psychedelic integration work.
It's noted that it does not pair well with rigid CBT-only frameworks or highly pathologizing models that just seek to eliminate symptoms.
The goal here is expansion, not simple reduction. And the practice itself is guided by 5 foundational core principles of Aevum-informed care.
Principle 1 is multiversal identity recognition, recognizing each person as a reflection of infinite potentialities. Principle 2 is the conscious time spiral. Healing involves intentionally returning to past moments that call for integration.
Principle 3 is embodying the living paradox, teaching clients the vital skill of holding contradictions simultaneously and with compassion.
This is where the model really earns its name. It's about learning to hold, for instance, the immense joy of watching your child succeed, while at the same time holding the quiet, terrifying anxiety about their future suffering.
You can't just solve the fear or deny the joy.
Holding both is maturity.
The 4th principle is working with karmic threads and archetypal patterns, mapping recurring life themes and inherited trauma.
This uses a spiral mapping technique to help the client identify their curriculum point.
And the fifth and final principle is the unified dual practice, merging neuroscience, trauma studies, depth psychology, and spiritual emergence into one cohesive approach.
The whole model is built on the belief that a client isn't just a collection of symptoms, but the universe remembering itself. And healing begins when you remind them that they are more than their pain or their diagnosis.
And that reframes the symptoms, dissociation, anxiety, existential crises, not as failures.
But as evidence of a powerful inner system trying to process more reality than the physical body can currently contain.
Now, for the most practical, safety-focused part of the plan, the crisis management protocol. It's a 7-step process, and the documents make one rule crystal clear up front.
And that rule is, if a client dissociates, has panic attacks, or suicidal thoughts, you stop ATM HIP immediately and use this protocol. You ground the client in this reality first, always.
The vessel has to be stable before the spiritual journey can continue.
The protocol begins with step 1, stabilize the vessel. This is about immediate physical interventions. Cold water splash, bilateral tapping, weighted blankets, a mantra.
And the language is direct. Let's root you in this timeline first. Sensation over narrative.
Step 2 is nuanced. Validate multiple realities. This means acknowledging the client's clinical sensations, the fear, the racing heart as real, and validating their spiritual experience.
So you might say, I hear the truth in your revelation, but if this is an initiation, it still requires protection. We have to protect the body.
This is so crucial for preventing splitting. Step 3 is to navigate symbolism carefully. The therapist has to offer metaphor as a possibility, not a literal fact, to maintain that safety barrier between internal reality and the external world.
Step 4 is the paradox dialogue. This is where you introduce the core principle into the crisis itself.
You hold both truths. You ask questions like, you feel both profound terror and profound truth? Can we hold both of those experiences with compassion right now in this room?
Step 5 is grounding the sacred, using sensory anchors, rocks, photos, music, and physical rituals like breathwork or prayer to anchor the experience back to material reality.
Step 6 is co-creating a containment ritual. This is about safely containing the overwhelming information. You might imagine placing the chaos into a time-locked jar or vault that the client can safely return to later.
The clinical utility of that is huge. It tells the client system, we acknowledge this immense data, but we are setting a boundary to process it safely later.
In the final step, step 7 is the post-crisis integration plan. This involves spiral mapping, archetype work, and identifying a stable support network for the client.
The ATM-HIP concludes with a strong set of ethical guidelines called the commandments.
For practitioners, they must do no harm, honor all realities, hold mystery as sacred, and facilitate inner sovereignty, not dependency.
And the ultimate reminder for the practitioner. Remember, you too are the living paradox. The therapist isn't an expert. They're a fellow traveler.
Exactly. And for the clients, the affirmations are incredibly empowering. You are allowed to question everything. Pain is a teacher, not a life sentence. You are more than your diagnosis.
And the most central, healing assurance, which just encapsulates the entire framework's mission.
You are not broken, you are breaking open.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting as we wrap this up. We've spent this deep dive tracing this entire architecture of existence. We went from the paradox of the void self-desire all the way to a concrete plan for mental health.
We've seen a philosophy that reframes time as a spiral staircase, views forgetfulness as a necessary gift of grace, and defines karma as a supportive curriculum.
All unified under this one banner of the living paradox.
We covered 4 foundational concepts. First, the core principle. You are the source experiencing itself, the fractal identity, the whole ocean in a drop.
Second, the mechanism of reality is that paradox trinity, the continuous cycle of descent and return.
Third, the landscape is the spiral timeline, which teaches us that repetition is integrated growth, not doomed failure.
And fourth, the ultimate struggle of life is resolved not by eliminating conflict, but by learning how to hold the opposing forces of your life gracefully and consciously.
And this framework connects the world's great spiritual traditions and cutting-edge science, arguing they are all echoes of the same eternal pulse.
And through the ATM-HIP model, it offers a functional path for healing through radical self-acceptance, seeing life's patterns as curriculum points guiding us back home.
The Aevum theory fundamentally challenges our cultural obsession with fixing our flaws and achieving perfect certainty.
It suggests our struggles, our contradictions, Our moments of confusion, they aren't signs of being lost or broken?
They're signs of an ongoing sacred process of emergence. As the source material says, existence is not a burden to escape, but a beauty to remember.
That shift from brokenness to breaking open, from seeing your life as a problem to be solved to a revelation to be experienced, that seems to be the entire mission here.
It is. That's a perfect summation.
So what's the final thought we're left with?
Well, if the living paradox is truly not something to solve, but something we are invited to become, then the goal isn't to find the definitive final answer that settles everything. The ultimate provocative thought that we are left with, and the one the theory encourages us to explore, is this. What if the profound freedom you seek is found not in running toward the answer, but in fully becoming the question itself?